Hello, tutor Rafael Núñez and classmates. My name is Fatima Anaya Perez, and this is my timeline presentation of ELT method approaches. Questions to be answered in this video. Number 1. How did the approaches method originate? Number 2. What are the approaches methods in language teaching? Include historical timeline. And number 3, what is the importance of the approaches and methods in ESL teaching? Which are the most used? Question number 1. How did the approaches methods originate? The search for an ideal method for teaching foreign languages has been a constant preoccupation mainly throughout the 20th century. In fact, during the 20th century, different methodologies emerged and gained popularity among those in charge of putting them into practice. Before the 20th century, the classical Greek and medieval Latin periods were characterized by an emphasis on teaching people to use foreign languages. But we can assume that during those periods, a language teacher or tutors used informal and more or less direct methods to convey the form and meaning of the language they were teaching. In the 17th century, the most famous Czech language teacher and methodologist of this period, Johann Amos Comenius, published books on his teaching techniques between 1631 and 1658. So, in conclusion, approaches or methods originate in order to have a basis for how to teach a foreign language. And one approach became more relevant than the previous one as the years went by. Question number 2. What are the approaches methods in language teaching? Include historical timeline. Now we have timeline of language teaching approaches methods. In this timeline, we have different methods and approaches that we are going to describe below. Number 1. Grammar translation method, 19th century. This is a method of teaching foreign languages derived from the classical, sometimes called traditional, methods of teaching ancient Greek and Latin. In grammar translation classes, students learn grammatical rules and they apply them by translating sentences between the target language and the native language. Some advantages are development of good and correct writing skills in students. Literature is used to a great extent, through which the culture related to the English language is learned. And knowledge and control of grammar is extensively developed by learning rules, norms, structures, etc. Now we have some disadvantages. Students develop few language skills, no speaking or listening. Students do not question that they are learning, they only memorize. And it is deductive. Number 2, direct method, late 19th to early 20th century. It is a methodology for teaching languages that consists of establishing a visual and immediate association between experience and expression, between words, phrases, and idioms and their physical or corporal expression, without relying on the student's mother tongue. Some advantages are the learner is active. It shows the culture of the country of the target language, and it puts more emphasis on pronunciation and oral usage. And some disadvantages are the teacher is the protagonist, does not use the mother tongue, and it uses a lot of time in the explanation. Number 3. Audiolingual methods, 1940s to 1950s. It is based mainly on language acquisition through repetition, emphasizing oral expression and pronunciation. The teacher focuses on speaking in English or in the target language, while the students acquire speech patterns through repetition and analysis of spoken language. The characteristics of these methods are habit formation through repetition. Great importance is given to development of oral expression and comprehension rather than writing. And the mother tongue is not used. The language to be taught is always spoken. Number 4. Situational method, 1960s. It is based on oral procedures and uses a variety of situational contexts to present new words and structures. So, the main classroom activity is based on controlled oral practice of language structures through situation designing for this purpose. The characteristics of this method are it emphasizes the close relationship between language structure and the context and situation in which it is used. And the objectives of the situational approach involve the precise use of vocabulary items and grammatical rules to achieve a practical mastery of the four basic skills. Number 5. Communicative approach, 1970s. It is an educational approach whose emphasis is on helping learners to use a language other than their mother tongue in a variety of contexts, with the learning of language functions being of great importance. Some advantages are working in teams, develop the four language skills, and there is reflection on real life situations. And some disadvantages are not as much emphasis on corrections, and it is more difficult to assess communicative intent. Number 6. Total Physical Response Methods, TPR, 1970s. This method, which is widely used as a second language learning technique for beginning learners, combines verbal instructions with physical actions. This popular method incorporates movement with language to increase learners' comprehensions and recall of new vocabulary. Some advantages are dynamic learning, improves retention, and active participation. And some disadvantages are limited to basic concepts and depends on the teacher. And number 7, task-based approach, 1990s. It consists of proposing to the students the completion of a series of tasks in the target language, the one being studied in order to foster their ability to communicate in that second language. Some advantages are it aims to develop all language skills. It promotes learning through the use of the target language in the classroom, and it is deductive. And some disadvantages are not all students are willing to work in teams, and participation is unequal. Finally, we have the question number 3. What is the importance of the approaches and methods in ESL teaching? Which are the most used? Teaching methods are very essential in the educational process as they provide the teacher with a framework to facilitate effective learning. Teaching methods are vital because they provide educators with a set of strategies to promote effective learning, uh, taking advantage of the natural human capacity to be educator and applying knowledge in a balanced and diverse manner. Which are the most used? Provide your opinion. I personally consider the methods or approach most commonly used to be total physical response (TPR) method. This method helps to associate words and phrases with actions. I think this method is one of the most commonly used, especially when students are beginning to learn a new language. Task-based approach. In this approach, tasks and projects that simulate real life situations are carried out. And I think this approach is used a lot because in English teaching books, they often have tasks such as ordering in a restaurant, writing a cover letter for a job application, or reading an email that requires a follow up action, which are situations that could occur in real life. Audiolingual method. This method is one of the most used also in my point of view because the repetition and memorization of phrases and grammatical structure through oral and auditory exercises are seen in classroom to this day. And as an English language learner, I experienced this method. Finally, we have the bibliographic references. Thank you very much.